Our last meeting came to bear with the reconsideration motion that was made. It was a very interesting debate, maybe one of the more interesting ones we've had since I've been on the body. But the purpose here is to simplify the rule change, and the rule change is that currently the code reads that if a reconsideration motion is made by a member and seconded and it's found proper, that the item can't be taken up until the next regular meeting if the body is adjourned. And so that means two people could hold hostage the process for 2 weeks, because the next, or more, 3 weeks. And that could actually kill important business that's come before the body. And so what this change does is gets rid of the word regular on line 36 and 37 and takes a little bit more out of the code on 42 and 43 there. It's 2.30.080 in section 1, conduct of debate discussions. By taking out the word regular and taking out the word next regular meeting or until, and just leaving in somebody takes action on the motion, this leaves the body the right to notice very quickly a special meeting and take up the item to ensure that the public's business is not held hostage by a super minority.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Constant. Ms. Wynne-Pearson, did you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I mean, I don't have a lot to add, just that this change mirrors what Robert's Rules of Order advises, because Robert's Rules of Order actually does discuss the potential for abuse of both the motion to reconsider and the motion to reconsider and enter on the minutes, which I've never heard anyone say, but which is actually addressed by the same section. A motion to reconsider and enter on the minutes is something you can make the same night that something is voted on, but that by saying and enter on the minutes, there's a different type of motion. It postpones the vote on the motion to reconsider until the next meeting. Mm-hmm. And so Robert does comment on that and say this is prone to abuse of exactly the type that Mr. Constant has identified, that members, a super minority of a body might elect to hold hostage an action of the body to the extent that it kills that action. And so when Mr. Constant and I talked about this, there could be an endless list of things that fall in this category. So my advice was, rather than trying to create the endless list of things that could be time sensitive, just allow yourselves to consider it at a special meeting. And that's effectively what Roberts advises. Robert says, in the event that someone tries to abuse this, the body should adjourn the session to the next day, which is not really something we do here. So the reasonable proxy that we actually do or you guys do as a body is you convene special meetings to continue discussions that are not complete during a regular meeting. So that's what this allows you to do, is do, again, as Roberts advises, call a special meeting, do the reconsideration vote, and resolve it within a matter of days rather than waiting 2 to 3 weeks and having something suspended for that time period.
Thank you. Mr. Gates?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add one thing. The reason it can be abused is because it only takes the motion to consider it in a second. When you have a motion later on the meetings, and so two, you could postpone something to the next meeting. Also the same as the other reconsideration action we had, or call starting purpose, means that when you do it in writing and submit it to the clerk in 24 hours, it just takes 2 of you. And so that's why that can be abused by just 2 members who want to postpone the effectiveness of some ordinance passed or resolution.
And most egregiously, when that postponement will effectively moot the action, right? So I can think of many instances. One is liquor licenses, which I know you guys are separately potentially addressing, but if you moot the action of the assembly to protest by a certain time, then you don't protest, and then the deadline passes, or budget items, or I can think of other issues. You know, if we need to appropriate money in order to get federal matching funds and we don't do it timely because somebody's trying to get us to not take those funds. There are a lot of different ways this could be used to, again, effectively override a majority decision of the body. And that's what we're trying to avoid.
Thank you. I want to note in the record that we've been joined by Mr. Dunbar. So I have a few questions, and I'll turn it over to you, Ms. LaFrance. So first is, what is the notice required for a special meeting?
24 hours.
24 hours. Okay. Got it. Okay, so then that should effectively, well, I guess, what if we have something that's like at the end of the agenda, it's 11 p.m., and there's a motion to reconsider, and does that mean that we have to wait until 11 p.m. the next day before we can take that up?
I think effectively, generally, this is a question for Barbara, but I think generally she issues public notice the next business day, so you wait 2 days, like you would. And I will say that what Robert says about things that are immediately timely, like if the deadline is the next day and we can't even notice it, Roberts directs you as the chair to tell your colleagues to get in line, basically. It says the chair should advise the members of the body that they should not have used the motion to reconsider. That's effectively what Robert says. If there's something that's more timely than that, like the deadline is literally 8 o'clock the next morning, you should either do an immediate motion for reconsideration, or you need to tell your people to.
If I might just on that, if the chair is really on it, those items that will be contentious won't be left till the end. If there's a time-sensitive restriction, then they'll get done early, and we will have time before the 11 o'clock hard ceiling. If we can't get 8 numbers to have that second vote to reconsider with a no vote.
And then, so another question I had was, I thought there was a provision where the chair could continue having meetings until a certain item was completed. And I thought they had used that as an example during the non-discrimination ordinance when they had that testimony. They just kept rolling the testimony over until it was done. Did they do something special there? Did they notice all of those meetings, or how was that done procedurally?
That's a good question. I don't know if Dean knows the answer, if Barbara is stuffed out, but...
Well, I don't specifically, Barbara would know, but I do recall there's some code about continued meeting, right? That's how that meeting will instead of continued meeting, you're supposed to determine the time and date of the continued location. And just talking about that.
And I think that...
Barbara would know more detail.
And I think that the reason that's not the solution here is because the potential abuse you're guarding against is the person who is twofold. One is the meeting is closed, is adjourned, and then in the 24-hour window, someone makes the motion. So the meeting's already been closed. You can't vote to continue it to the next day because it's already done. Or the person who makes the motion to reconsider and call on the minutes and enter on the minutes, and that motion, as defined in Roberts, can only be heard at another meeting. It can't be heard at the continuation of the current session.
Got it.
So that's why it's not the answer here.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Did you want to comment more on that?
And Barbara's here. You want to get her opinion on that? And I just know that we have, in fact, I asked the question in the meeting. We can, according to the rules, continue a meeting 2 dates specific without opening or noticing. It can be tomorrow. The next day can be 3 days from now. That's how we did it. I forget the vote. It was about 3 months ago.
Right.
4 months ago, maybe.
Okay. But that's probably something that we wouldn't want to abuse. We want to do it in a similar situation where we have this tons of testimony. Okay.
It's a taxi cab issue.
Right. Ms. LaFrance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just so I'm clear on that last point, because I had some questions about notice requirements. This AO would take away that option of asking for a reconsideration in writing within that 24-hour period?
No, it wouldn't
would
at all. The only
Okay.
thing it does is it says that the way it's drafted right now, if you move for reconsideration in writing within that 24-hour period, you guys can't hear that motion until your next regular meeting. So like this next week is a great example. If on August 21st one of you moves for reconsideration, it's 3 weeks until your next meeting. And by nature, the motion of reconsideration suspends the efficacy of the underlying vote. So if you voted to do something, you suspend it the next day, there's a 3-week period where the action is suspended.
Right.
This is designed to allow you to elect to call a special meeting sooner than that and hear the motion for reconsideration and make a decision. It doesn't suspend your ability to do that 24-hour in writing motion at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my actual question was, do you have any thoughts as to why the code doesn't mirror what Robert's rules recommends? I mean, can you think of any reason why it would have been any good reason, or
The only reason I can think of is that, and I didn't say anything obvious in the legislative history, but others may know. The only reason I could think of is that regular meetings are more fulsomely noticed and people plan to be there further in advance. So you may have a better likelihood of perfect attendance, and the members of the public may already be planning to come to the meeting. So those are the advantages of a regular meeting. So so that's the thing to weigh, I think, against the ability to prevent the abuse of the motion, which is what this would like to do.
Thanks.
Yeah, Ms. Jones.
Through the chair, I think at one time the assembly met every week. When that may have made more sense.
Don't anyone get any.
If you just met every day, this wouldn't be an issue at all.
Reduce our hourly pay from about $3 an hour to
75 cents.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Ms. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm still trying to grapple with the action that a motion to reconsider actually does. Because if you do move a motion to reconsider, which you still could, just like you did a couple of weeks ago, or whenever that was, then you're voting on that at that time. And if the vote is no, then you don't reconsider.
So, Crystal, can I get to that real quick? I can tell you exactly how, using a specific example. The specific example is how we did it the first time. When Eric and I were going back and forth. And Pete and I, after the meeting adjourned, the motion was to levy heavy penalties on a marijuana licensee who did some bad things. And the time was supposed to run for 4 weeks of the suspension of their licenses, all of these rules of kind of set up. Pete and I made a motion to reconsider. After the meeting was adjourned, which suspended the implementation of the penalty, and the way the penalty was written, it was to be to date specific, not for 21 days or whatever. And so we effectively truncated the potential timeline of that penalty by a week, right? And it was an abuse of the process because the meeting couldn't reconsider it. The body couldn't reconsider it for 2 weeks. And the clock was ticking on the penalty. And in the end, the correction was made. But in another case where you have a license that was to be granted by, say, alcohol, AMCO, we don't have a second shot. We don't have a local license. We can address that. If they find that to be an arbitrary action or outside of the rules, then our action is 0. And 2 members took 6 or 8 or 9 members' opinions and flushed it down the toilet.
Yeah, you did.
Which I know, but that can still, because there is an or there about the written notification within 24 hours of adjournment, you can do that. The idea of when to schedule the next meeting obviously is open. But my question is getting at, when you vote for a motion to reconsider, you're not instantly going to reconsider what you were previously talking about. You're considering the motion of whether or not to reconsider.
But if the motion fails, or if the motion passes, the previous action didn't happen.
That's
It's
correct.
gone.
But chances are, if you've got 2 people that are trying to reconsider, one of those people had to be on the prevailing side to begin with. And if you're trying to get them to reconsider, chances are they don't have the vote to even pass a motion to reconsider.
But you didn't want a reconsideration. All you wanted to do was run the clock out so that whatever action was going to happen couldn't happen.
There's a
But
key
there's
fact here.
still, you can still do that to a certain extent.
Sure. Okay, Mr. Dunn.
The key fact is that you can make a motion to reconsider after the meeting is over.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. That's the whole thing. So your whole thing about, we could debate it and it would lose, that's all true. The key fact is that after the meeting is over, we can't take any action. You can file one of these.
Until the next regular meeting.
Within, what is it,
That's
48 or 24 hours? 24.
And if I may, I would argue that there's value to that because that happened on the Anchorage School Board one time, and I was on the losing end of an argument, but when I mentioned to somebody that what the information they didn't have about why they made their decision, they went, oh wait, stop the press. And they did go in and move to reconsider, and we did have that again. It was still a split vote, but still there was new information that was important to have out there for that conversation.
So that's still allowed.
So you can still do
Yeah,
that.
that's
You can
still
take
allowed.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. There is value in that. It's not just obviously you can use it as a strategy, I suppose. But you need this
Yeah, absolutely.
in order to be able to really
That's
have
the
that,
whole point of
There's
that.
no
Fail
removal.
safe, you might get new
All right.
information.
All right, Mr. Constance, what you got?
There's no removal of the right to reconsider here. It's just that timing is such that the body and the chair could determine we don't want to meet on this till the next regular meeting because it doesn't have a timeline-specific impact, right? But if we change the code, then it will provide the body or the chair the opportunity tomorrow or the next day to pick this item up, so we don't miss the window of opportunity,
Yeah.
which abuses which removes the opportunity of abuse. And so that's the variable there, is that it still provides the opportunity to just meet at your next regular meeting if it didn't really matter. If it is something significant to you, I would always vote to allow reconsideration, like we did the other day when you was like, wait, I didn't really mean to vote yes on that item. Please help me. And so even if that's the next day, fine, but if it's going to suspend the imposition of a penalty, or worse, get a ballot initiative on the ballot that 7 of us agree on and 4 of us don't, and the deadline is missed, and then those applications by law have to go out or whatever, that's the abuse we have to turn away from here.
All right, so. Yeah, did you have more, Ms.
I just want more clarification that the actual move to reconsider is a vote of whether or not you reconsider, not necessarily that you will ever get back to that initial item that you voted on to begin with. So you're really meeting, if it's after 24 hours later or 48 hours, whenever that meeting is sent, you're really just meeting to say, are we going to reconsider this?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, except it could be that it's
No.
yes, that
No,
question,
she's
and then
right.
the underlying question. No, you could, it's not that you would only ask the question to reconsider. You could, if it was a time-sensitive matter, the question is on the table and you're in a meeting. The whole point is to allow you to vote on the question underneath if the members agree.
But she's just
Right.
asking whether the first
that's
thing
another
you
movement.
consider,
That's
yeah,
another
it's
process.
whether.
But it's allowed at the same meeting,
At
once
that
you
same
call the
special
meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
not
As long as
just
you know
that
that,
you can only take.
But
one
yes
of the
is the answer to her
reconsideration.
Right, and
Yes.
then you could actually set a date later to call that motion that you're reconsidering up to reconsider.
If you wanted to, but the whole point of this is to allow it to happen quickly.
Yeah, so likely the, actually, no, I don't think so, because if we don't take action on it, then it dies,
Yeah.
right? So we would have to take some
You
type
could
of
continue it, you
action.
could continue it to another meeting.
We could, right?
Right.
I would think so.
So what the clerk's office would do for you there is that if, I'm going to use the petroleum cement terminal contract as an example. So you voted to approve the petroleum cement terminal, and then the next day, someone filed a motion and it was seconded, all right? So we understood that there was some urgency with that. And so the chair decides to schedule a special meeting the next day to consider the reconsideration and on the petroleum cement terminal. So on the agenda for that meeting, you would have one item. It would say clerk's notice, motion to reconsideration filed, but it would have the full item underneath it. If it was AR 2019-1, that item would be there. So then at the meeting, when you come together, you are absolutely right. First item of business after the pledge and all that stuff, does the body want to reconsider? And that should be in the clerk's note. If the vote is yes, we want to reconsider, then the item is before you. And then you either, it is before you as if you never voted on it before. So now we start all over. You need a move to approve or a move to postpone, or postpone indefinitely, whatever the body chooses, but the chair would say, what is the will of the body? And it's back before you as if you had never voted on it.
Well, and to further clarify that, any amendments passed would still be, right? It would be the latest version that we voted on.
Yes.
Okay. Does that answer your questions, Ms. Kennedy? All right, great. Yes, Mr. Willis.
But I have 2 questions. So, as far as the date of the special meeting, who decides when that would be?
The chair.
The chair. So you would say scheduling,
Or
then it
probably, what is it?
24 hours.
Oh, 24 hours.
So it probably would not be the next day.
That would be a little difficult. So
But you
it-
can't notice it, right?
We-
How long do you
You
need
could.
to notice?
It's
24 hours.
24.
But in the term of the court, though, would that have fit under the definition of an emergency meeting?
Didn't you guys continue that meeting? So you didn't, or did they? I don't know what did they do with the
No.
court meeting. Did they-
She was just We didn't reconsider the bill.
No, did
No,
we
but
actually
the
did a
scheduling
motion
for
to
the
consider and
meeting.
killed it? So we can do that.
But didn't
Yeah,
you,
we did.
you did it, there was a second meeting on the port, did you call that as a special meeting and you guys
We
just
called it
noticed
a
that
special
24 hours?
No, there was quite a gap. I mean, there were.
Yeah, it was a bit of a gap.
Yeah.
It was a special.
Oh, right, it was a special
Next
meeting.
week.
Yeah.
But if I might, Mr. Chair, I think you could, just in an abstract world, if you received at 5 p.m. or 4:59 p.m. a properly made motion to reconsider, the chair could say, Barbara, call a meeting for 7 p.m. on the next day, and get it into the calendar, and that would meet the 24-hour standard. I don't know that that would be ideal, but if it's a 24-hour clock and it was a super important item, you probably could legally get to, unless there's a code restriction that says a notice doesn't take effect until the next day if it's after 5 p.m. And so I think that you could, in a scenario, have it the very next day. I have a question though, is it just the chair or could a majority of the members call that meeting as well?
That was something that.
That's in the code. It is the chair or a majority of the
So
members.
then-
I also think even the mayor may be able to do that, but I don't know
That
exactly.
raises an important question, separate from this ordinance, and that is how does a majority of the membership call a meeting without violating the Open Meetings Act?
Well, wouldn't we ask you to schedule it?
But how would we know? Because if it was super important.
Oh, right. How would we know?
Talk to
Yeah.
people to make that happen.
You know, I think maybe there's an exception.
6 people have to get in touch with you.
Yeah, if I may,
Sure.
calling special meetings outlined in the charter can be called by the mayor or the chair or 5 assembly members.
Right, but even 5 violates OMA, so I don't know if the charter outlines how do we do that without violating OMA.
Well, you just have to notice the meeting. Tell the clerk, notice a meeting. We're meeting. The 5 or 6 of us are meeting at a coffee shop.
How do 5 people agree to that?
Yeah. Like,
There has to be an initial
how does the
conversation.
clerk know that 5
We're in
people
a
have
bind.
agreed to this meeting?
No.
Maybe we all tell Dean we want to, and then.
Agree actions that you're authorized to take. This is just scheduling meetings, you know, you're not
Oh,
doing
okay.
the court contract.
Okay.
You're saying 5 members, maybe at the wedding, make sure it's probably.
So
Are you signing some, or?
could we ask for a legal opinion that spells that out for us? So that
How
we,
you would-
yeah. Thank you.
Because I think even us signing a piece of paper would be a violation of Open Meetings Act. If 5 of us signed this
But isn't
piece
it
of
about
paper.
pending legislation? And if this is truly, I mean, the underlying thing is about pending legislation, but it's truly asking to schedule a meeting. So maybe
If
Dean's
it's
saying
about a
it's,
reconsideration.
but Dean's saying it doesn't apply to,
I
Open
want
Meetings
it in
Act doesn't
writing.
apply to that.
Please put it
I
in
think
writing.
it would violate it because you're just worried whether we should have a meeting
Yeah.
or not. The content and substance of the action to take at the meeting.
So don't discuss
So,
the underlying stuff.
It'd be fun to get recalled over a doodle poll.
Yeah, right.
But I think, though, that the answer to the question lies in the question itself, because the charter says you have this power. And so the charter says you can do this, therefore, there has to be a way to make this happen. And so it hasn't been found illegal under any litigation that you have this power to call a meeting. And so until such time, we can assume we have that power. It just would be nice to have a legal opinion that guides us should we find ourselves in that position.
Agreed, Mr. Hudson. Okay, so I think you had another question, Mr. Wellington.
I don't know if it's relevant if this were to pass, but is it possible for us to say that the Assembly does not allow motions to reconsider and put on the agenda? Like that part of Robert's rules we don't allow.
Yeah, you certainly can. I mean, you've incorporated Robert's rules by reference in the code, except as modified by the code explicitly. So you could elect not to allow for those types of motions. There is certainly some value to them, which is why I propose anything quite that broad-reaching. But you legally can certainly propose that.
And it wouldn't really be relevant if this were to pass.
We mean like getting
Well,
rid
someone
of
could say, motion to reconsider and put on the agenda during the meeting, and if that messed them up, we could have a meeting.
Yeah, you could also limit it and say motions to reconsider may only be made at the meeting or something like that. I mean, it takes away the value of the motion to reconsider, right, is to allow more time for additional information, to allow people to change their minds after the fact, or to allow for a different composition of the body to vote on the same matter, right? So say you have weird attendance at one meeting and an improbable majority passes something that the whole body has constituted likely wouldn't support, the motion to reconsider, and specifically the motion to reconsider and enter on the minutes lets you take that up later on. So there's all kinds of merit to those different things, but you certainly could, as a group, elect to say that you would rather not have those options. You'd rather be able to make sure things are resolved conclusively at the meeting.
Good, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Middleton. Ms. LaFrance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This may be a side issue, but you can only make a motion to reconsider on a vote once.
That's what. So we've had a long debate about this. I don't know if you want to comment on this. Yes.
Yeah, it's a Robert's rules, it can only be once, so if you make it during the meeting and vote, you can then have a motion to reconsider and arrive within 24 hours, because you've already done it once. So you can only have a motion to consider once.
Because
Go ahead.
I was going to say, that's one thing that has always been very concerning to me, because I understand why we do that. Like with the PCT, we wanted to make sure it could move forward. But on the other hand, after a vote, I mean, sometimes people who are watching are like, shoot, I should have said something, and they're, you know, it's conceivable that someone could come forward with new information, but we've already voted, and so that's done. And so that, I don't know, that just doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. LaFrance. So, go ahead.
I think that there's other avenues to approach that problem. We can do a motion to rescind something previously adopted, and we have a section we call about that motion.
But I think that motion, you can't make it unless you make it before the item is effective. So if you have the plastic bag ban and the effective date is September 1st, you pass it on July 1st, you can rescind something previously adopted if you do it in August. Yeah, so that, or you could just write a new ordinance.
You also could continue. I mean, I think this goes to the gravity which you should take your votes on immediate motions for reconsideration. If you feel like you might want more time, you can say, I move to continue vote. You know, you don't have to vote on it immediately. You could, as a body, elect to say we're going to continue consideration of this motion to another meeting, or you could move. You know, there are other ways you could say, wow, it seems like enough of the body is unsure. We'll vote yes to reconsideration, and then we'll continue discussion of the underlying item to a future meeting. So I think it just goes to taking, again, considering the gravity of the vote you make when you do an immediate motion for reconsideration.
And then just quick follow-up, so for clarification, because I hate that when it's like, I don't want to reconsider this now, but okay, it's yes or no, and it feels like kind of, it's just unsatisfying. So you're saying that instead of that, you could counter with another motion to take up the reconsideration later?
Well, you could continue, but if there's a motion on the table, you could continue discussion and vote on the motion to a future meeting. I look to Barbara for her. Like if there's a motion pending, so just like
motion to reconsider.
Yeah, motion to reconsider has been made and seconded. They're discussing. You say, you know what, I want to move to continue discussion and vote on this motion to reconsider until our next meeting or until a special meeting in 1 week to allow us more time to gather information from our constituents. Right?
Yes, Becky is correct, because the code says the motion has to be made at the meeting or within 24 hours, and it's been made. You can continue that discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prince. Mr. Constant.
If the motion to reconsideration is made, but then the decision is pending and the underlying item is time sensitive, and the action takes effect, between when you have that and the next meeting, when you're trying to accomplish this conversation, what happens?
Well, nothing happens. But the magic of that solution is that you all have to vote on the motion to continue. Right. So what we're trying to avoid is two people get to push it. If the group as a body says, you know what, we're not clear enough about this, we are going to vote by majority vote to kick reconsideration out of week, because we don't care about the fact that this is going to mean that our contract has some delay because we're that unsure about what we want to do. We need more information. I think that's fine. What you're trying to avoid is the abuse where two people can strategically kick something, like just not suspend something for 3 weeks.
And I want to go back to what Pearson said earlier about what Robert's Rule says, which is, the chair needs to say, hey guys, this is going to mess up our process. Rethink this motion.
So I just want to clarify. What I heard you say is that when that motion is postponed, action on the motion is postponed, it doesn't affect the underlying move.
It absolutely does. Because remember, that's the whole point of the motion for reconsideration. It suspends any action that the body took on the underlying motion.
Only if it's voted yes.
Nope, that's not what the
That's
code
it
says.
Yeah.
It's just the motion itself. Very interesting. Well, this again argues that we need this solution even more so, because this is a simple, elegant solution that allows the membership to have a special meeting, and not just because somebody made and seconded a motion, stop everybody's wheels from turning. Yeah. So I urge your support.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. Any other discussion on this?
Mr. Constant, did you have a question about continued meeting versus continued public hearing?
It wasn't me, it was
Oh,
other
I'm sorry.
people, but
Yeah.
we kind of went through that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got it answered.
Yeah, Mr. France.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you explain how this fits with the other piece we're discussing? Don't we have that before us? And I haven't gone through the binder yet, but are we looking at that on Tuesday to suspend reconsideration for?
That's this.
Well, no, I
Yeah.
thought we had another
So
piece.
didn't we approve that one already? And that
Oh,
was
okay.
specifically
Okay.
regarding marijuana
Okay.
and alcohol licenses.
So there's nothing about that coming back. It's just this. Okay,
Just
thanks
this.
for that clarification.
Yeah, and I think Ms. Swing Pearson talked about this earlier. This is a more elegant way for us to resolve this rather than having to state in code all of the different examples of why we should use
Okay.
reconsideration. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Yep. All right. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Then next one's at 2:00.